Hi everyone, welcome to Dirk Island. This segment is worth watching, and I'm going to be talking right now about a documentary I watched on HBO called The Price of Everything, which is about the contemporary art market. And for those of you watching on video, the reason I'm wearing sunglasses is because my eye is a little bit swollen, and Alex wearing them in solidarity. This documentary is about the contemporary art market, really the high-end, like, art as an asset class for the ultra-wealthy, and it kind of talks about the price of everything, basically certain artists going up in value by a ton and then back down. Now, my verdict for this documentary is a 6. Maybe worth watching. Now, I give it a 6 because if you're really into the art market, it might be interesting to you, and if you're someone who watches like every documentary, maybe it's interesting to you, but for the most part, a lot of people are just going to find this way too niche, too boring. Now, that's not to say that this isn't well produced. It is. It's on HBO. It's well done. One of the most interesting things, though, about the documentary is it does talk about Jeff Koons. Now, he's famous for the those kind of stainless steel, almost like balloon animal pieces. Those are what people mostly know him for. And there's interviews with him, and there's kind of lore about him. And he's one of the most famous living and sells the most expensive pieces, you know, of a living artist. And it talks to him, and he talks about this new thing like the gazing ball that he has, these new pieces. And what really comes through with him is you realize that some of these really, really successful artists are really, really good salesmen. And so for him, they tell this story almost about how he was on Wall Street before he was an artist. And there's this story about him being like almost the scene from Wolf of Wall Street, where all these guys are trying to make cold calls, and then they listen to Jeff Koons on the phone, and they realize this guy can sell anything. And that is probably the enduring insight of this documentary, is that it gives you a bit of a view as to how some of the people who are the most successful at selling paintings, living people, for millions and millions. Some of his stuff from his early work, these balloon animals, the most famous stuff, is worth, you know, over $50 million a piece at this point. So it's insane, and you realize that some of these people, especially the ones who can sell for that price, who are still alive, are incredible salespeople. And they contrast him to someone who has lost a bit of favor, Larry Koons, who's this guy who's like an artist, but he doesn't have the salesmanship. So his price goes down, whereas a Jeff Koons continues to go up. There's a few allusions to some other things that go on with the art market. You know, who are the buyers? There's a little bit of a reveal of who are the buyers. Who are these people who spend so much? Who are these people who sell these really expensive pieces? There's also an interesting segment with one of these buyers where he talks about kind of the world as some people are leaders and some people are followers. And to be even a very successful art collector today, you have to have good taste, but you also need to be a little bit shallow. And what he means by that is essentially that you need to have taste that has mass market enduring appeal, so something that a lot of people will like. There's also an interesting sequence where one of these high kind of brokers of high-priced art talks to people, and you see how they sell art to people, and she says something like, I like to say there are 3 types of people in the world: those who see when shown, and those who will never see. Which is really funny because it's just it's a FOMO line, right? It's like, oh, so either you have the taste, or when I tell you what's good, you will like see that it is good, or you'll never see. So you definitely don't want to be a person who can never see, right? So at least it's better to be someone who will see when shown, as opposed to, and then it's such a like FOMO, Emperor's New Clothes thing. Like you at least if someone indicates to you that it's good, like you should believe it. But it obviously goes so much along with how art is sold and continued to be sold at higher prices, is a lot of people who are very convinced that they either see or see when shown. You know, they don't want to be the people who can never see.
Is that the guy who's in The Broad, who has the like inflatable animals.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. He's super famous. And every
Such
museum,
good stuff.
lots of nice hotels too. Like I think there's Jeff Koons' The Wynn in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
In Rockefeller Center at, last year when I went there, they had a giant inflatable version of his ballerina, like stainless steel thing. It's this like ballerina tying her shoe. It looks like an inflatable thing, but it's like stainless steel. So super famous, and it's really interesting to see from a person like that. That's probably the best get of the documentary, is getting a little interview with a guy like that, because you realize he not only makes aesthetically appealing stuff, but he sells it. He is just an incredible salesperson. You can just tell by his, because he has a factory of artists too, and you get to see him essentially creating some of these pieces, but his hand is not creating them. He's got a legion of people making these, and he's going, if I was to do that brushstroke, I've created a system, so that brushstroke is a Jeff Koons brushstroke. That is the brushstroke that I want made there. But if I was to actually make that brushstroke, I could only make one of these in an entire year, or maybe it would take me 2 years to make this. Whereas now that I've created a system where I can make these, and it makes me obviously able to do much more and actually be successful at this.
Interesting.
But he sells you. He sells you. He just sold you on, I'm not even touching this piece of art that you're going to buy for $2 million. But so anyway, so you see that's the best part of this thing.
Interesting. He's like an Andy Warhol pop art type person.
A bit, yeah. But he's still alive. He's like 60.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
interesting.
Okay, but ultimately the reason that I would say this is maybe worth watching and not necessarily greater is because if you are interested in the art world, there are actually a few other documentaries that are probably going to be a bit more engaging. And the ones I can think off the top of my mind are Exit Through the Gift Shop, obviously.
Amazing.
Amazing. Another one, Brillo Box is another one on HBO, which is about this family that had one of the original Andy Warhol Brillo boxes. That's a really great, kind of funny one. It traces a single piece of art, but a bit more story there. Not just an overview of the market, but a bit more story in that one. Another one that I did like similar called Blurred Lines Inside the Art World. I thought that one had a little bit of a reveal of how the market stays up, and it was I thought pretty interesting in that way as well. And then another one that I love called Herb and Dorothy. It's about these two people who have been kind of middle income people. One was a postal worker, and they lived essentially off the wife's income and with the husband's income, and they lived in a rent controlled apartment, but they used all of that income over the years to develop relationships and buy art from all these unknown artists, and they had really good taste, so now they have an incredible collection at their old age in life. So it's just a great documentary, but all of those that I mentioned have a ton more story, and I think that's the thing, that if you're interested in the art market, contemporary, or any sort of story in the genre, I would start with those. This one might be worth watching if you really are into this genre, but some of those I would say I recommend a little more highly. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this. If you'd like to watch more of our content, you can subscribe on YouTube, or you can get the podcast that we do every week.